What's going on, YouTube? Welcome to another Pastel Painting Friday. Today we are going to finally be painting a portrait of somebody that I know, as opposed to painting an image from the internet. So let me adjust my little setup here. So top left, you see the image of Dion Chapman. He's the owner of the Billiard Academy that I go to. I'm a member of his Billiard Academy in Alexandria, Virginia. Streetlights Billiards Academy. That's the name of the Billiards Academy that I go to. So let's go ahead and get started here. Hey, Uncle Earl. This is a bigger sheet of paper, by the way. This is about, I don't know, it's about 16 by whatever this is. It's going to get cut. So with the drawing or a painting that you think might actually be displayed somewhere, you want to give yourself more room to cut anything around it that you may need to, like edit. For example, like if there's a smudge, which there is on the top, which is not big of a deal, but basically for anything that you suspect you will use, like this may end up hanging in the academy, who knows. I want to make sure that there's extra space. So that's an extra step that I suggest that you take whenever you're painting somebody that you know. I took this picture of Dion no more than 4 hours ago, I guess, when I was at the academy practicing. So there's the shape of the head, just a basic idea of the shape of the head. The eyebrow is going to fit up here. Axis for the eyes. Nose going to fall somewhere over there. Axes for the mouth, concavity of the eye socket. Using a horizontal line here, right on the bottom here, we can see the placement of the ear. It's going to be somewhere down here. And I'm a little bit more cautious about the surrounding than I usually am, because I did do a practice session for this right before streaming. And I realized that I gotta be a little bit careful about what lands on the outside. So feel free to ask any painting related questions, any art related questions. Right now I'm just using my black pastel to draw, and pretty quickly we'll start to mass in shape. Simple straight lines and angles is going to be key towards keeping my shapes workable. I don't want to get into too many details too early on. Corner of the side of the head, hairline right there. Again, axes for the eyes, but that's going to get taken out and added again, taken out, replaced. Hey, mate. So yes, this is exciting. Finally, after a long time, I get to paint someone that I know. And you'll see I'll be a little more careful, a little more tentative, I guess, about my drawing and my shapes. Of course, yesterday we painted Hugo, and I went right in with very specific shapes. So even yesterday I was a tad bit more cautious about my drawing, even though I was mainly using abstract shapes. The ear lands slightly beneath the mouth there. I mean the nose, right about there. So this is probably the most you're gonna see me use outlines. Typically go right in the values. Especially with pastel, we're gonna have to go and put so many layers of pastel. Okay, so there we have outside shape of the face, hairline. Double check everything is all right with the placement of the nose. General shapes are going to be your saving grace here. Work with basic shapes, subdividing the shapes into more specific ones later. Okay, say we're good to go. Let's go ahead and start to mass in some values. With pastel, you're going to want to layer your colors right away. You're going to be mixing directly onto the surface. So it's okay to go straight black if you need to. The more you draw, that's why I spent a little bit more time with the drawing, the less painful the awkward stage is going to be. Giselle, you have some soft pastels. Oil pastels, sorry. Their use is slightly different from soft pastels from my limited experience with pastels. I think that with the oil pastels, depending on what brand you get, they're a little bit tackier, it's a little bit harder to move them around, but you could start pretty much just like this with oil pastels. But again, these are soft pastels, but they're not like as messy as some soft pastels can be. But you can do the same kind of process, such as what we're about to do now. We're going to add a color onto this shadow, and from this point forward, we're going to be layering. Now, when you're painting or drawing somebody that you know, and you want to be a little bit more precise about your shapes, I suggest that you do a study beforehand. I did a study right before this, so I'm aware of his head shape, where things need to fit, and what mistakes I made during my study session. But try the best that you can to do a study first. And for most of my videos, these live streams, most of them I actually do a practice session right before streaming. And again, even with the hair, because we're going to be layering these colors. Choosing my vignette carefully here. How things are going to be left unfinished to complement the things that are going to be more finished. So let's see, May wrote, yeah, I did use oil pastels the first week, but soft pastels, yeah, for the remaining, for a while now. As pastels were new to me in the beginning, they still are, but now I've developed a certain comfort level with these pastels. And you can layer oil pastels just like the soft pastels, what we're doing here. So we're going in with the yellow. Remember, I said you're going to be mixing directly onto the canvas. In this case, the canvas is paper, which, by the way, I changed the paper. This is still Canson brand paper, but it is a different color. This is the called Felt Gray. And after doing my study earlier today, actually right before this, I found that this is my favorite color to use for pastel, for the paper, that is. Following the directionality of the planes is vital when you're working with pastels. And in that sense, pastels really do help you develop a keen sense of planes. So we're layering black, red. I have a different color added to the palette today. This is Cinnabar Vert Clear. Not sure really what that translates to, but it's a light greenish color. And each week I'll add a little something different. But the same colors that I used before are going to be the primary mixtures that I'll have. As you see, I put a little yellow ochre in the shadow, which is contrary to what you would do with oil paint or with acrylic paint. But what I'm doing is I'm building the surface. I'm building the colors. So you have to think a couple of steps ahead in terms of what values you're going to use. Well, accents here for where the features will eventually fit. These are more just place markers. They will be adjusted from time to time. Working with these abstract shapes are very important. It's important that you don't psych yourself out in the whole concept of portraits. Being afraid, oh my goodness, this has to look just like the person. Or else, no. As soon as you start thinking that, it's game over. See how I'm layering the planes as I go. We're building the surface. whenever you're photographing people for paintings, try the most that you can to stick to a single light source. Luckily for me, in the academy, when I took the picture for this earlier today, we were able to isolate one light source. And I can't begin to express how important that is when you're painting people. Also, make sure to let them know that if you're painting them or an image of them while they're smiling, it's going to look too obvious that you painted from a picture. So we're still doing everything we can to make this look like this was done from life. Again, these are approximations for where the eyes are going to fit, not necessarily the end all. Just like when you're painting glasses, you want to have kind of a little approximation of where things are going to fit. And this is again just building the surface. I did crop the picture and took the background out, some of the background. You're going to want to be able to do that as well when you take references of people. Photo references, you want to be able to edit to make sure that you eliminate anything that can make the picture look less like you're painting from life. So, how's everybody doing today? Haven't heard much from you today. Hope everyone is well. If anybody is new to these streams, let me know. I can say hello to you using the white chalk or the white pastel for the background, or just this part of the background. You'll see why later on. I'm glad you're doing well, May. So any exciting plans for the weekend? Those of you here, remember, anyone that may be new, the schedule is Wednesday oil painting, Thursday acrylic, and Friday pastel, in case anyone is new here. And I'm finally painting a portrait of someone that I know, as opposed to using a photo reference from the internet. This is my good friend and owner of the Billiard Academy, Streetlight Billiards Academy in Alexandria, Virginia. Literally, if it was not for this guy, I would not be able to play pool the way that I play today. So this is a very important painting for me. Just like when Sargent painted his close friends. It means something. Put a little bit more pressure on the painting, which is a good thing. It's good to have a little pressure once in a while. And this reference is actually pretty good for ears as well. Last time there wasn't really a clear image of the model's ear. And if you do any cast drawings, and I hope that you do, cast drawings and paintings, one of the best ones to do is actually the sculpture of the ear. Now it may seem a little wild to layer the planes like this, but remember we're building the surface. Gotta think a couple steps ahead. I knew I'd go in with this green, lighter green, then back in with the red. So I'm much more relaxed this time than I was last week. Last week these soft pastels were brand new to me. Now we've got a couple pastel paintings with these very same pastels already done. So smooth sailing now. So anyone that may be watching, what materials do you work with? Do you prefer to use acrylic, pastels, oil pastels, soft pastels? Next week we will have our first prints made, and anyone that's interested in prints, let me know. Of course, no rush, of course. We're going to be testing out different options. None of these will be available for purchase just yet. Though we've had some interest in some of these. But soon. Not quite yet. Now for the facial hair, you want to stick with a greenish, but build your way up towards that. Whenever someone has like any kind of facial hair, you want to build your way towards that, just like anything else. And don't worry about the awkward stage. Remember, the awkward stage is part of the painting, the part of a portrait painting in particular, where it starts to resemble a human, but it's not quite human, and that makes people feel uncomfortable. That's the awkward stage. It's one of the things that makes, or the biggest thing that makes portraiture so difficult. Building the surface. See, I put in that dark triangle with the black. Go right back into it with the umber color, the reddish umber, linked in the description box of the video. Same idea here. So we're gonna need to layer even more, so I'm gonna go pretty heavy with the dark pastel here. Pretty heavy. Then we're gonna go in with the red, the umber, the reddish umber color. It's not called reddish umber, but it has a number associated to it. It's linked in the description for you. I find this color pretty useful for shadows. I think I used it to draw with last time. I'll put some of his neck. Again, it will fit with the vignette. The vignette is the stuff you leave unfinished to complement the more finished things. And this is just yellow ochre. As you can see, with the tone of the felt gray background, it works pretty nicely. The cool color of the felt gray background really helps to push out the skin tones, push the warmth of the skin tones. Okay, I'm going to use some more of the dark the side here. We're going to start to place the corner of his temporal lobe here. We're going to be more specific with these planes. As we build up the surface, superciliary arch right here. You're currently working almost exclusively with acrylics, but also have water mixable oils. Still not opened my pastels. Oh good, I'm glad that the video has encouraged you with the acrylics. Yeah, acrylics are definitely growing on me. In a good way. Yesterday's acrylic pet portrait of Hugo was a lot of fun. Challenging. We're working our way towards the drawing. So far we've been mainly focusing on building the surface. We're now starting to hint at the drawing. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in a little bit for you. Now that we've chosen our composition here, so pretty good for 30 minutes in. Again, he's gonna use the, well, let's try something. Because what I wanted was to avoid anything getting a little bit out of place in terms of my lines. This got out of place here, so I'm gonna, there we go, perfect. So we're gonna use this to carve out a bit of a vignette. You'll see what I mean. Now, what I'm going to do is use the white sparingly, not very much. Carve out the shape for the side very carefully. So we have a little bit of kind of like brush strokes is what this is going to look like. That was deliberate. So know your tendencies with your drawing. I tend to have a tendency to make the hair too tall. That's why I went in with that right away. best way to draw hair in pastel is to not think about it as hair. Think about it as a series of shapes. With pastel, you need to have a plan as to what you're going to add next. Don't just go straight into it without a plan. But so far, this is my favorite material to work with, even more than oil paint. And that's because I find pastels to be more challenging for me. Because working with them is different than anything I've ever done before with oil paint. And to me, that's fascinating. In the sense that you have to hatch, as you see me go across, hatch in the direction of the form. And again, doing this as if I was working from a live model is key. And if you can draw or paint people that you know, try the best that you can to, number one, make sure that they're not smiling too much, but that they look stoic, proud, like they've been sitting. Make them at least look like they've been sitting on the model chair for a while, so that it looks like you painted from life. And make sure that you have a single light source. Luckily, when I took this picture a couple hours ago, I was able to, we were able to isolate one of the lights in the academy. Now this is hands down the most difficult thing you can do, in my humble opinion, in all of art, is to paint people, portraits of people that you know, especially, you know, like a head and shoulders portraits are the most difficult, which makes it the most fun for me. Think about it, when you're painting a portrait of somebody where you have their hands and their feet and there's an environment, there's more for the eye to focus on than a head and shoulders. So it's fun. Again, we're building the surface, but now we're starting to draw a little bit. Hey, Libertas. Yeah. I'm working live. This is happening as we speak. Action-packed live stream here. Pastel Fridays. Now, vignette-wise, you really gotta pick how you crop. So I think I'm alright with the way it's cropped now, but I may change things. But so far, like I was saying before, this is my favorite medium to work with right now. It's just so different from oil painting. It's crazy. The fundamentals are the same though, but it's just so different. You really get to feel the form. So I keep going back and forth between different colors. Mainly sticking with 3: black, my brownish umber, and yellow ochre. The photo reference is edited in the sense that I took out the background. I also adjusted the value range so that it's more subtle on the picture. Of course, it's going to be a little bit stronger on the pastel drawing or painting, whatever you want to call it. I think of pastel as painting, which, I mean, some people think of it as drawing. I think of it as painting because you're using pigment to produce an image. So to me, pigment is the same as with oil paint. Thanks, Augustin. Hopefully Dion likes it. He's a close friend of mine, and without this guy, I would not be able to play pool the way that I've been practicing for the past year. He's the owner of the academy I go to in Alexandria, Virginia. Especially with pastel, it teaches you how to do things like this that you wouldn't normally do. Overdo a plane with the intent of pushing it back, cross hatching, and this will level your oil painting up so fast. And your acrylic. And again, you really get to feel out the planes. It's amazing. These are Rembrandt soft pastels, Not sponsored by anyone, so of course I'm telling you from my own experience. Now we can start to put in some color for the facial hair, starting from the chin. Try to use a greenish hues for male facial, well, of course, with facial hair with any type of color change that gets away from the focal point of the light in kind of like a warm color. And you see this in a lot of Sargents and a lot of Bouguereau paintings. It tends to have like a kind of yellow zone, a pink zone, and a green zone, and this is repeatable in pretty much almost all portraits. Sometimes if somebody's wearing a red shirt, then of course it will reflect the red, so that can be a counterexample. The color range that we can get with pastel is amazing. The subtlety that we can get, pretty much like a Rembrandt. I mean, that's kind of funny because the pastels are called Rembrandts. You know, one of these days we're gonna do a pastel Rembrandt with the Rembrandt pastels. Seems like a good idea to me. But I'm finally able to paint people that I know. So I've got other images of fellow Academy members. So I'll be finally painting people that I know. This is all I've wanted to do for so long. This is absolutely tons of fun. Tons of fun working with this material. Now we're carving out the edge of the nose. Look at the level of specificity we can get with this. We're approaching our first break. We'll be in 10 minutes. And almost like clockwork, every time we get to the first break, we introduce subtlety. Right now, no subtlety. We only just got into the drawing. What I refer to as drawing is the refinement of the planes, moving them into an exact spot. Yeah, that's not something that's so easy to do with oil paint or acrylic paint. Adding light into the dark without it overtaking everything. So you have to have a light touch. And you develop that throughout the years of practice. Best thing you can do right away is to have a lighter touch, is to hold your paintbrush or whatever you're using further back. And believe it or not, I feel like I've learned a lot from the portrait of Hugo, in terms of trusting the shapes. Even more so than before. This is Canson Metiance, however you pronounce it. Pastel paper. The color is felt gray. So far, this is my favorite color to use for portraiture. They're all changes that I'm doing based on the planes of the face. You wouldn't normally see me do something like this in oil paint or acrylic, because I can almost just always mix that color right away. But here I have to build it all the while following the direction of the planes of the face. So this makes your knowledge of the planes of the face much more accurate, because it relies heavily on being able to feel across the form. Got just about 4 minutes till the first break. And subtleties when we return. Pretty decent for 1 hour. And of course, during the break, I'll play the Hugo's video. For anyone that may be new here, Hugo is the Shiba Inu that we painted yesterday. In case you're new and you were also here yesterday. But if you weren't, Hugo is my Shiba Inu that I have trained since he was 11 weeks old. He knows a lot of tricks, competition level tricks, and I hope you will enjoy. I usually just take a break for a couple minutes before returning. It's important that you do this, take a break during a drawing or a painting session so that you give yourself some perspective on what you're doing. It's also good to just take some time away to relax. Starting a painting or even being in the subtlety stage of a painting is a very mentally active thing. You're constantly problem solving. Time does go by pretty fast with this. Okay. Alright, so it's been about an hour, so now it's time to take a break. When we return, we will start to add more subtlety for the face, including some of the lights for the eyes, a little bit more specificity for the chin and the mouth, as well as further developing the planes of the face. But once again, I will return in just a little bit. Hopefully you will enjoy the video that we play during the break time of my Shiba Inu Hugo. Remember, I'll be back in just a couple minutes. Okay, I have returned. Welcome, welcome, Zena, welcome to the stream. Okay, so just like clockwork, now that we're starting the second, well, returning after the first break, so I guess the second part of 3, I guess, of this stream, we're gonna start to get into the subtlety. So Augustin, this is the owner of the billiard academy that I go to. Like I said, finally I get to paint people that I know. So this is Dion Chapman, the owner of Streetlight Billiards Academy in Alexandria. And without him, I would not be able to play pool as much as I am able to, and as well as I've been able to in the past year. So thankful for that. Oh, Hugo. Yeah, Hugo is kind of an entertainer. All right, let's go ahead and get into the subtleties now. Let's go ahead and use a little bit of red, kind of a la Rembrandt. You typically see Rembrandt put red around these areas of the shadows. Kind of a Rembrandt thing to do. And might as well do that if we're using Rembrandt soft pastels. And this academy, the academy that he owns, there was actually a world record that was broken in that academy. So lots of cool stuff happens there. Like I said, hopefully I do well enough with this pastel painting that it'll be displayed there. Yeah, Dion's a really cool guy. He set me up with a custom pool cue. Most people wouldn't do that. But he cares about his members just like I care about all of my viewers here. And he lets Hugo go to the academy with me. So that's fun. Giselle, why did I name him Hugo? Because he's like a son to me, and my dad's name was Hugo. So, he's a son to me, so that's why his name is Hugo. I don't have any human children, and I was reserving that name for many years till I felt like it was time, and I just kind of knew. So yeah, he's definitely earned the name that he has. Others may, and others have disagreed with why on earth I would use that name, but to me, Hugo, dogs are not just dogs. I mean, they're family. Like to me, it's a crime to leave a dog outside. I don't believe or buy into that like outdoor dog kind of thing. That's not right. That's a whole other thing, though. We'll stick with the pastel. This is the side plane of the forehead. Let me get into the planes a little bit here because Dion has a pretty good frontal structure on his forehead. So this is the frontal eminence here, as you can see this curve along with the highlight. This is the side plane of the forehead. You see how these marks go this way and this way? This gives us the side plane of the frontal eminence, and this right here is the superciliary arch of the skull. Kind of think of it as like the gutters. This is like the gutters to the roof. This is the roof of a house, and this is the gutters. So these are very useful anatomical landmarks to know. As you see, there's a lighter plane here on the superciliary arch on this side. So you see how it translates over from one side to the other. Thanks, Giselle. Facial hair. Be very, very cautious with facial hair, because if you don't treat it like shapes, it can look like it was drawn on. So for example, I'm working my way up towards it, but this, starting it off like that was great, but it's going to have planes added to it. Hey, Guston. Oh yeah, he goes 100% indoors. He's never outside unattended. Yeah, he stays in the same bed too. He just hangs out, wakes me up in the morning whenever it's time to get up and feed him. That's my routine in the morning. Really, I wake up, he wakes me up, I feed him and walk him, and then I start to do art, practice painting, studio painting. And then when I have time afterwards, I go to the academy, and I'll be bringing him to the academy more often. Oh yeah, 100%. 100% indoors. So we're adding a greenish hue as we start to subdivide these planes. Hey Jonas, welcome. And, not to shame anyone, and I know that, like, for example, I'll admit that my uncle, one of my uncles, used to keep his German Shepherd outside, and he built a shed for the dog, and I know that they love their German Shepherd in their own way, but I saw that dog suffer, being outside. And of course, my cousins don't really watch my live streams anyway, so I don't need to worry about them finding out about me exposing them. But they did love their dog, and they in their own way, and they kept the German Shepherd outdoors because my uncle didn't. Well, I mean, I love my uncle and my cousins, my whole family, and they had their own way of raising their German Shepherd. But my uncle, when he met Hugo, he was really impressed with him in that dogs can actually be like that. Indoors, sitting on a chair, not moving, not barking or using the restroom in random places. The fact that they can behave better than most humans. And my uncle was really taken by Hugo. And a couple other people also in my wife's family. They come from a background where some dogs are kept outside as well. And particularly one of her cousins was very impressed with Hugo. Now, in terms of the pastel painting, getting into the planes here, you're going to want to subdivide your planes from these large shapes into smaller ones. So now we're going to start to subdivide into smaller shapes around the eyelids. But again, these are longer live streams, so if you want to talk about stuff aside from art, this is a long enough live stream, we can do that. As long as nothing is too, too controversial. Because I notice as soon as I start to talk about anything else, we lose about 10 people. So we're building the structure for the upper eyelid. Now I'm going to use my greenish color, which is quite helpful for the sclera, and we're going to just use the green to blur all this out. Which is going to look weird at first, almost like possession or something. But you'll see why we're doing this. Not too much in the shadow, but somewhat. That's why I chose this light greenish color. Because I knew I would use it for things kind of like this. Let's do something extreme. We'll go in with red. What you do to one side, you want to do to the other. Red is actually just going to be easier for me to see for where the pupil is going to fit, though you won't see it that much. Yep, Augustine, these are Rembrandt brand pastels, soft pastels. They're not the most expensive, but they work really well. I like them. And I really like this paper. The Canson pastel paper. Métiance, however you pronounce it. Felt gray is what this is. It's amazing, this paper. The color works really well with skin tones. Careful not to add too much to the shadows too soon. I prefer to build it little by little. But when you start to add the eyes, especially when you hold back from these subtleties for a while, it introduces another awkward stage. But we've sharpened these pastels now enough by, working kind of like zigzags that I can apply a somewhat fine touch. Somewhat is relative, as I just messed that one up. Alright, so now question for everybody. And that question is going to be, have you ever worked with pastels before? And if you have, what pastels have you used? Curious. Who here has worked with pastels before? And the more you get into the subtleties, the more you're going to want to stand back. Or in this case, I'm sitting back quite frequently. Squinting also helps. Squint in order to avoid detail. But don't do so much that you hurt your eyes. We don't want to do that. That's pretty much all I was taught to do. Well, among many other things, but I was always told to squint, stand back, paint what I'm seeing as I'm squinting. I think they even at the school studio in Caminati that I went to in 2011. So May, you haven't worked with pastels, but I chose a set for a Christmas present. Still unopened so far. Well, definitely whenever you're ready, give them a try. Definitely helps with your planes for sure. I feel like my planes have improved like night and day, at least my confidence when using planes. Hey, Eileen, let's see. You've used soft pastels but found them a bit messy. Yes, they are messy. They are tricky to work with, you're correct. But part of that messiness is what I'm really liking in terms of being able to work with the planes of the face, planes of the side of the eye, like this one here. But these Rembrandt pastels are not as messy as some could be. But I agree, it is kind of messy to work with. But thank you for your response. And these have kind of like almost like an oil pastel feel to them too. A little bit weird. Hard to describe them. I'm actually gonna move his eyes slightly. He was looking a little more to the left of the paper. And move the eyes slightly. So when working with mass, planes are a lot easier to work with in my opinion, and I think that the oil pastels are probably better for working with less with mass, I guess, depending on what oil pastels you use. Oil portrait price opposed to pastel, good question. I price them the same. I wouldn't price any material differently than another. I would charge the same for acrylics as I would charge for oil painting. Some galleries are a little weird. They do that different. And be careful with galleries like that. But of course, everything is a business, right? But you should charge the same. Don't charge differently for pastel versus oil paint. Absolutely, do not do that to yourself. Good question. I really like that question. Hopefully it helps someone out there. In case somebody runs into a gallery where they want to charge more for oil paintings versus acrylic. And I've seen that so often, so many times. So from Jonas, he wrote, when you're using pastel, is your thinking the same when mixing the colors as with oil paint? Excellent question. Bravo. I like that question. The answer is yes. My color mixing is the same. My thinking is the same. But I'm mixing on the paper. So the paper itself is my palette. That was the question of the day. I really like that question. All of them are excellent questions, to be honest. Augustine's question was absolutely essential to many artists out there. Don't charge less for different materials. Don't do that to yourself. Don't do that to yourself. Galleries will trick you in that. Remember, galleries themselves, they're a business. They need to stay afloat. Do I charge by square inch? Yeah, definitely. So square inch is one of the factors of how I charge for paintings, but also the time. So if I spend twice as long on a small painting as I do on a big painting, I'll charge twice as much for the smaller painting. So time as well is a factor. Sounds like somebody's gonna get into some commissions. This sounds good. Putting in some more of those Rembrandt touches here. Really great questions, everybody. Yeah, don't worry, I understood what you meant. Make sure, to all my artists out there, don't get, how we used to say in PG County, don't get got. Don't be fooled by galleries wanting to charge more for different media. That's just foolishness. But you know, that's kind of how the world works too. I mean, some paintings are going to be worth more simply because of someone who painted it. If Taylor Swift made a painting and she had 2 weeks worth of training, it'd probably be worth more than I would sell in 20 years worth of painting. That's just the way it is. That's, name brand stuff. So Augustine, you're joining an art group here in Bakersfield. I plan to exhibit in a gallery, so wondering how much I should charge. Definitely charge by square foot and by how much time that something takes you to finish. By square foot, I mean square inches, because we're not working that big, right? Unless you're working that big. But charge by square inch and time. It's hard to put a price on time. Maybe you can think about it in terms of how many weeks it took you to paint something. You know, something took you 1 day. So, for example, this is going to take me 1 day. So I wouldn't charge as much as I would charge for a studio painting that took me a month to complete. However, I wouldn't want to undercharge for it either. So you need to factor those things into your final pricing. For gallery type work, you want to be a little more, what's the word? A little more decisive about what you're creating. You know, if you're going to be doing a series of paintings, make sure that, you know, you think of it kind of like a business, like how much is it going to cost you to produce the product? Because I mean, art to a gallery is a product. To us, it's like a way of life, but to them, it's a product. So you don't want to take too long on something and then, you know, have to pay yourself below minimum wage per hour. You don't want to do that to yourself. Finally, the eye looks like it's in the correct spot. Took a little while. However, there is another factor into pricing. And I can say this because I don't have too many people here watching this live, but this is going to hurt some people's feelings. But experience also plays a role in pricing. So, for example, what someone with 20 years experience does in 20 minutes should be worth more than what someone with 2 years experience does in 20 minutes. That's assuming that we're playing fair and we're talking about drawing, value, shape, proportions, perspective, all the good stuff associated to representational art. And it seems unfair, but it's kind of not, because, well, for me, I consider myself kind of like almost middle career, beginning to approach, I don't know, early mid-career. I've got 16 years now. I can't believe it, but yeah, I've got 16 years of painting. At least this kind of stuff, this kind of painting. 16 years. So what I do in 3 hours, having 16 years experience, I have to charge more than somebody that would have 6 years of experience, what they would do in 3 hours. In my head, you know, this is in my head, theoretical, not like in real life, but theoretical, to help you price. When I was younger, when I was only doing this for 6 years, I did sell things that I probably should have charged more for. But I was young, I was just excited to sell something. Now that we've figured out the eyes somewhat, we can move on to the nose and mouth. I'm using kind of like another Rembrandt touch, pushing that more red towards the bottom. For likeness, pay attention to the shapes. Now I know that there's a tad bit more of a roundness here. Okay, question here for everyone. Those of you that are still here, feel free to comment as well. If you're watching this as a pre-recorded video, do you have any goals that you see in yourself as an artist? What are your goals? What are your goals that you have for yourself? Do you want to enter galleries? Do you want to become a career artist? Do you just want to improve on your skills and have fun in the meantime? What are your goals? I'd like to know. If that was a tough question, then what's your favorite movie? I mean, I don't want to ask too many tough questions. That was a tough question. And what is your favorite movie? The Goonies? What's your favorite movie? My favorite movie is Torque, the motorcycle movie. Your goal is to become more consistent. Thank you for responding. That is exactly the same goal that I have with billiards as well. And with painting, my goal is to be the best painting video demonstrator of all time. It's a big goal, but my goal is to be the best of all time in doing these painting videos. I was inspired from a really young age from Nelson Shanks. The portrait is the fine art, to do video, combine video and painting. Consistency is key for everything. Thank you for sharing. Maybe you wrote difficult choice, probably Terminator 2. That's a good one. You were given a formula, for example, 9 by 10 equals 9 by $20. Total 180. Yeah, dollar per inch. That's a good formula as well. Nothing wrong with that. So Giselle, you were trying to do something consistent, artistic consistently. Oh, thank you. I'm glad you enjoy watching the videos. Enemy Mine is your favorite movie. So Elin, you would like to make time to paint each day. Need to practice more. Well, of course, making time to practice is vital. And I agree, trying to make time to do it is definitely it's difficult. There was a time in my life where I couldn't do that, and I was going to go into college to study math, and I do like math. There's nothing wrong with it, but I would always find myself drawing and sketching and stuff. And this is after I went to the academy, and my dreams was to get to a point where I could do this every day, same thing. And I'm here. I want to maintain this, so trying the best I can every time, practicing as much as I can. Yeah, pretty much every day. Even Sundays, I just don't record it. But learning a new skill really helped me. Like, learning billiards really helped me understand how lucky I was to have the teachers that I had back then. Because I am lucky in the same way. In billiards, I'm lucky that I met so many great pool players that taught me so much, as opposed to going to practice at bars where it's not really conducive to learning as much. I'm adding more yellow ochre to the shadow. So I want it to be a touch more opaque. As opposed to seeing too much of the paper underneath, I'm trying to make this a little thicker. I also wanted to make the color a tad bit cooler too on this side, warmer on this side. Trying to paint this just like a Rembrandt, as if I were studying a Rembrandt. Remember, we studied the old masters not to copy them, but to figure out what made their work so powerful and to try to embody what they knew, what they were able to do, and bring it into modern times. And for me, my major medium of choice is video. These streams, sharing this with everyone that's willing to learn or willing to just watch. So we've added a lot of subtleties, not so much with the mouth, but more so with the eyes and the nose and the surrounding shapes. Building a subtlety within the shapes. And we'll take a break in 9 minutes, and when we return, we will add the impossible subtleties, bringing this to hopefully a classical type finish. Definitely let me know if you're enjoying these live streams. This is the 3rd week, I think, that we've done these streams consistently. So that'll be 9 live streams in the month. too much for you, let me know. Not that I'll stop, but curious as to what you think. Hey, Hansel Dog, thank you. Yeah, I finally get to paint someone I know, as opposed to just using a reference from the internet. So let's just do it. Let's put something for his shirt. I didn't know whether to put this or not for the vignette, but let's just do it. And just a couple lines, really, so that it still looks like a pastel. There we go. That looks a lot better, I think. More definition for the bottom of the neck. You may. I'm glad you like the 3 consecutive streams. Glad it works out in Scotland. Okay, I got 3 minutes till the break. We'll return for the impossible subtleties. In Scotland, runs from 9 p.m. to midnight. Oh, wow. Okay, it's late over there. Glad you're still able to join. Giselle, you wrote. Yeah, you wrote. Ellen wrote. You're in Scotland also, a bit late during work week. Well, good thing we have Fridays, I guess. Good thing there's a Friday for you. Thanks for joining. Giselle, I'm glad you like the 3 streams as well. 3 different mediums. Good, good. Yeah, I mean, hopefully people will catch on to it. Catch on to these streams as time goes by. Yeah, people that like the different materials. I had to teach myself this one from scratch completely last week. So, but I really like it. I like Pastel. It was definitely tough to learn in a short amount of time, but I enjoy it. I enjoy that we can create something that looks just as subtle as an oil painting or an acrylic painting with pastel. The color range is amazing as well. Okay, so now we are at the second hour. I'm going to take a break one more time. This will be the last break before we take this pastel painting to a finish. So, as always, we're going to play the video of Hugo, and I'll start it from a little bit later so you can watch the rest of it. And I will return in just a little bit. Don't worry, I will be right back. Hopefully you enjoy the video of Hugo. Okay, I have returned. Hopefully you enjoyed the break time video. And maybe you wrote... Oh good, I'm glad you liked the different mediums and the handling of the different mediums. Awesome, thank you. Now we will take this pastel painting to a finish. We're gonna get into the subtleties, but first I'm gonna do some little drawing stuff. Still needed a tad bit more form on the edge of the chin. That's why it's important to take a break. When I came back, I was like, whoa, what did I do there? That was a mistake. It's important to take breaks so you can see these things. But yeah, this pastel paper is amazing. The color, the gray color, does really well to bring out the skin tones. I'm gonna have to use the white and the black and white again to do some drawing corrections here. Just like we did up there. Also adds to the vignette. The things that we leave finished complement the things that are less finished. Want to make sure that this stays smooth now because it's going to be the final vignette. Same thing's going to go on up here. So I'm going to follow all around the contour, trying to make this vignette a little bit more subtle as I go. So I'm gonna have to keep layering with these. There we go, something like that. A little bit more light on the neck. Okay, so now this kind of effect on this side of the face. Then once we can get this to be nice and quiet, then we'll go into the subtleties, which there's really not much left, to be honest. But compositionally speaking, this is going to be kind of really important, because this will be what makes this read across the room, quite literally. Now this is just like a John Singer Sargent vignette, and I had already planned this out as kind of a plan B. As kind of a plan B. But I knew that those lines were not going to work well. So light against dark, dark against light, that's going to be the vignette for this. Just like Rembrandt and Sargent combined together. What I learned from my study is to try not to mix this background. Try to get a color to be your background. And I'm choosing the white because I know that it's going to contrast with the shadow. It's a kind of a strategic choice in the sense that it will contrast, and in the future I'll probably buy a gray. I could just use this. Oh, this would be a risk for sure to use this green, but let's just test it out. Test out the value. So that value, as you can see there, of this greenish tone is too close to that. So I'm going to have to do what I didn't want to do and mix to make this value a little different. What I would suggest you do is to have a pastel color that you would like to be the background, or like I just did there, spend the time to mix it directly on there. And that's what I'm going to have to do on this side. The backgrounds are the most precarious things, and in all painting. Luckily this green isn't quite as bright as that, so that'll help with the contrast. And this is really important that you do right away when you enter the final sitting. Don't wait till the end to do this. We still have most of an hour left to work on this, which is plenty of time. And of course, I'm the director of this movie, so if I want more time, I can give myself more time. And again, John Singer Sargent would use vignettes like this, where there's kind of like a square. And I think some of that has to do with the fact that when you crop, if you have to cut anything, you could literally cut into here if you want to. I would suppose Everett Raymond Kinsler also kind of copied that from Sargent. And who's to question Sargent and Everett Raymond Kinsler? And now I'm going to change the light sensitivity so you can see this a tad bit, you can see it with more clarity. Okay, a little more clarity there. Okay, so now that we have that out of the way, we can start to build more of the lights on the face. Not quite as bright as this, but this is going to be a nice contrast for how bright it can go. Trying to get some of the pastel out of the way. Following the direction of the planes, of course. want to push a more orangey note here. Same thing over here. Once again, these are Rembrandt brand soft pastels. Trying to create a Rembrandt influence type pastel painting. Aileen. Oh good, I'm glad the background makes a big difference here. I'm so glad. The background part really scared me because when I did the study for this, I tried to mix this like a gray and that wouldn't work. So in the future I'm gonna buy a specific background color. Ooh, that part was kind of frightening. But we did it. We got through it. Now, none of these lights on the face should be anywhere near your brightest light, which would be somewhere up here. And with pastel, that's the brightest light, even though it doesn't show up. You really gotta build it, which is nice because you can't just accidentally put the lightest light in there and then have no room to go. Hey Hansel Dog, how does doing pastels make your oil painting better? Well, the fact that you're mixing on the paper, I believe will improve your color, and the fact that when you're applying the pastel onto the paper, the fact that you have to follow the form makes your plane handling more precise. When I did my live stream for the portrait painting earlier this week, I was very aware of my brush going in the direction of the plane. So it made me more accurate with my initial kind of chops, so to speak. So it makes you way more aware of planes as opposed to just 2D shapes, which are important as well. I'm going to put some reflection a la Rembrandt, kind of reddish. Though it doesn't quite show up on the camera. But thank you for the question. Hansel Dog, you said this before, you are the best at sculpting out the plant. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for that comment. I was really insecure about that, about my handling of planes when I first started pastels last week. I was very insecure. So thank you for that. It's something I've been actively working on this week. Hey T Mark, you wrote, how does one go about becoming one of your students? Do you have a semester cycles at the beginning and certain times? Yep, I do. I have. Thanks for asking that. We just started that actually, a semester cycle. So we started about 2 weeks ago, and basically you can start whenever you like, and I will guide you through the beginning projects. My classes are a little more, or I guess a lot more strict than most online art classes, in the sense that I only give feedback now for students that are working on class projects. After students have completed a certain number of projects, I then will deem them apprentice and guide them through their own ideas and concepts for studio work, gallery work, or making videos like these. And it's quite simple. You can just start off on my Patreon. It's just $10 a month for the classes. I have not increased the prices in the past I don't know, like 4 years now. So it's not like I'm going to charge a bunch of money for it, but what I want is for students to do the projects. Most of them are master studies, although some of them, like the beginning one, is using a photo reference, an approved photo reference like this one. And the photo reference has to have, of course, strong light and shadow. It's a checkpoint system, so basically you use the checkpoint as your photo reference. So Team Merc, all you gotta do is just check out my Patreon. You just type in Upari Artist online classes on Google, and it'll guide you right there. You can use either pastels, oil paint, water mixable oil paint, acrylic, whichever material you prefer. But please, everybody note that my online classes are a tad bit more strict now, in the sense that students cannot just send images of painting their family members or something, or friends, for me to teach them how to do it, or teaching you how to paint like this a la prima. This is absolutely not what I recommend be your first painting. So there should be a process where you start out with more simple exercises and build your way up to working a la prima. To me, this experience here, these demos, are more for what I consider my bread and butter as an artist, to be able to do these. The classes are more to skill build the future. Hansel Dog, you've come a long way since I started watching you almost 6 years ago. Yeah, it's been a while. I don't even know how long it's been. It's been a while. Well, thank you. And you know what? We're just beginning. We're just getting started. That's what Nelson Shanks would say. We're just getting started. Way more to come. And these streams are just getting started. Hopefully we'll be able to continue them. You know, back in 2020, to do this would have taken me a week, like three-hour sittings. So we've cut the time to about a third. So we're always learning. But I'm really excited for what Pastel has, the future that we're going to have here with Pastel. I myself couldn't believe what I could do with these pastels. I appreciate those of you that have left a like. Definitely helps with the stream. I will be making YouTube shorts with these to promote them as well. All feedback is appreciated. Team Merck recently bought a bunch of charcoal and acrylic supplies. I've been watching YouTube, but feel like need a little more structured training and critique. Yeah, definitely check out the Patreon. The first project is similar to this. There's a photo reference that I took, but I guide you through a classical start. Well, basically, where you start drawing with charcoal on a canvas, and you could use either acrylic or oil paint, so it's kind of the perfect setup for you to try out. See what you think. My teaching is based on the fundamentals: light and shadow, proportion, perspective, color relationships. It's not focused on things like how to make it look like perfectly look like a photograph. You know, like whatever's trending on YouTube, that kind of stuff. I don't do. I probably should, but I don't. This is a lot of fun. The pastel itself ends up looking like, to me at least, looks like an oil painting. Okay, so home stretch now. Or not. I'll take my time. And these pretty much will resemble brush strokes. So I'm trying to pick and choose the last marks that I want to leave per plane. So what part of the face gives me more trouble? You wrote for you that it would be the ear. For me, it's right here. This is the most complicated area on all faces for me, because there's so much going on. There's light, dark, light, middle value, darker, 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 darkest, light, light, and then it starts to get dark here, and then light again down here. So that's the most difficult for me, is like right in this area, because there's so much going on. So it's the part that to me requires the most subtlety, more than even that of the eyes. For any model, for anyone, that part's the most difficult for me. Excellent question. And yeah, ears can be quite difficult as well. That's why I suggest the trying to do the cast drawing of the ear. You can find it just by Googling cast drawing of an ear. You can find a picture to use. Of course, working from a real sculpture would be better, but a picture can work as well. I've got to be careful not to make it too soft and look like a photograph. I want this to be painterly. Little bits of expression here and there as we start to wrap up the subtleties. Again, very Rembrandt inspired, especially of course this is Rembrandt lighting, the triangle of light. Going across the plane, trying to get the right touch. Once I get the right value, then that'll be it for that plane. Right color as well. Another thing I should note, this is actually really important, is know your own likeness as a portrait artist. Do as many self-portraits as you can. Know your own likeness, and when you paint people, do the best that you can to do the opposites of your likeness. That's because we have a tendency to paint ourselves into others. Rembrandt did that almost all the time when he was Rembrandt. But I'm trying my best. Like, for example, the nose is more pointy and a little bit more sharp than mine. Eyebrows are more angled downwards than mine. I have a wide jaw and I have a strong, say, eyebrows. So I try to deliberately do kind of the opposite, lean towards the opposite first, and then kind of bring it back towards more specificity. But be aware of that tendency. Actually, a lot of portrait painters aren't even aware that they do that. Even my favorite of all time, Nelson Shanks, did that. Not with all of his portraits, but with a lot of them. Yeah, so it looks like I might actually have more models to paint as opposed to just using images from the internet. If I can convince the other members of the Billiard Academy to let me photograph them. But I've got 2 others that I photographed today that I'll use for paintings for next week. And this is actually kind of close to life size, I think. Well, at least almost the same size as my head, minus my hair. It's like a tad bit larger. And this isn't even the entire paper that you see here. But yeah, I think we're almost there. Almost there. But definitely excited with what can be done with pastels, for sure. I'm gonna stand up. See the painting from a distance. Another nice thing about these is that they don't glare. Both oil paint and oil paint and acrylic, they glare. But these don't glare from anywhere that I can tell. That's pretty good. think that might actually be it. Yeah, I don't see much else, everyone. Maybe a tad bit more light on the ear. Of course, what I'm trying to do is avoid making it look exactly like a photograph. That's no good either. Hey, Angela. Oh, thank you. Thank you, thank you. Hope you're doing well. There we go. A little more brightness for the ears. I'm gonna text Dion, see if he's gonna be at the academy. Maybe I can bring it over there. Then we'll go over the colors again. Alright, so let's go over the colors that I used for this one. I added one extra color that didn't really do much, to be honest. This is just a light green. This is called Cinnabar Vert Clear, whatever that means, but this honestly didn't really do much, except for it was useful for this. This is the color itself right here. But still, the colors that I was using in the past couple, the past video, pastel video or whatever, still, I really like this setup. It is white, and these are all Rembrandt soft pastels. So there's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. 5 of them. So it's white. This is brilliant red, yellow ochre. Wait, no, this one. Yellow ochre. This is a brownish red, which is, I think I typed it brownish red or something in the description box. And then, of course, black and white. So just 5 colors. With the addition of this green, which, as you can see here, is pretty much just for this. I'm going to buy like a gray, a light gray or something, so I can use for backgrounds for future reference. But mostly that's it, everyone. I don't see much else. I'm going to sign it, and that's about it. Let me go ahead and just type on the computer. See if you have any last minute questions. Then we return again next week. So any last minute questions? I may do a few touch-ups here and there, but not really much. Thanks, Hansel Dog. Thank you, May. Yep, I'll return on Wednesday. Alright, so let's go ahead and sign it. I'm going to sign it, I guess, over here. And if I can find it, I'll use one of my pastel pencils. If not, no big deal. I can use the pastel. Let's just use the pastel. I'll sign it over here. Okay, that's the signature. That is the end of this demonstration. Just 3 minutes away of 3 hours, so most of 3 hours. With, of course, the break that we had with Hugo, the wonderful Shiba Inu. So that's all I got for you today. Remember, anyone that may be new, the schedule is Wednesday oil painting, Thursday acrylic, Friday pastel painting, 4 o'clock p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Again, free for all of you to watch on YouTube. And if you're interested in taking online classes with me, just check out my Patreon or simply just type in Upari Artist Online Classes. Again, I wish you all the very best in all of your artwork. Once again, thank you so much to our model Dion Chapman, who is the owner of Streetlights Billiards Academy, and Alexandria, Virginia. Thank you, Dion. Again, thank you so much, all of you. Last minute question here. Connor wrote, how long do you think someone should draw before attempting to paint? Good question, Connor, and I would suggest that you spend a pretty good week or so, at least at the minimum a week of just drawing with outlines before putting in values with paints. But you can start off with paint sooner than you think. Just make sure that you don't jump right into color. Start off with monochrome. And of course, any other questions we will be able to answer throughout the future live streams. That's all I got for you today. I wish you all the very best, and I'll see you on the next one.